to our webinar for the Paperless Warehouse, Automating EDI and Scanning in Business Central. Today, we're going to talk about how you can manage EDI or electronic data interchange inside Business Central and how that integrates with the warehouse management system inside Business Central. So just talking us through what the agenda, it's very simple. We're just going to have a little bit of a look at what EDI is and what it means. Then we'll go through an ideal world process through slides just to explain it and hopefully demystify some of the functionality. And once we've done that, we've got my colleague Shane, who's the product manager and solution architect for our SupplyPoint software, who's going to take us through a live demonstration of the solution. So, electronic data interchange, that's what EDI stands for. And according to the standards organization that's in charge of EDI, the definition is the computer-to-computer transfer of business transaction information using standard industry-accepted message formats. So, unfortunately, it's been around for a long time, and there are a lot of other protocols and a lot of other standards that have come out that kind of do fit this description as well. One of those, which is on the screen right now on the right-hand side, is Paperless. There's been a lot of talk around this, and it's now got an ANZ localization called Pint ANZ. And it's especially important now because that is supported inside Business Central and also Continua and some of our other partners with differing levels of complexity. Paperless, just speaking about that very briefly, is an open network with global standards and local variants, just like the Australian New Zealand version, which supports the interchange of documents between businesses and governments. Even though technically Paperless is electronically interchanging data, so it fits into that EDI definition, it's not been around as long as traditional EDI. And while it is available and operating within our region, it's still very early, and we'll be holding more webinars about this later in the future. Paperless is more designed for basic e-invoicing, document exchange for purchasing, sales, etc., directly between different ERP or finance systems. EDI that we're talking about today is slightly different to that. It's a point-to-point connection, often with an intermediary, with specific agreements with each trading partner for document exchange. So that includes things like formats of documents and also processes. It's often used in fast-moving industries where it could not be possible to maintain velocity if documents were to be interchanged manually or via email. Generally, we see this kind of EDI being used when wholesalers interact with retailers, like supermarkets or large retail chains, or other customers that require a high level of automation in the procurement process. So it might not be relevant for everybody that's on the call, but we're glad you're here and we're looking forward to taking you through it. Today, we are speaking about this specific kind of EDI. So this session will be most relevant to those who deal in these type of wholesale, retail, high volume relationships. So before we move into a bit more detail, I wanted to just have a slide on EDI speak, taking us through some of the acronyms that are happening. Technology company like us, we love to get stuck in acronyms, sometimes accidentally. So I wanted to just make sure everybody was on the same page when we talk about this. So the first one's pretty easy. That's electronic data interchange, EDI. The next one's also pretty easy. PO is a purchase order, but we get a little bit more complicated now. So a POC is a purchase order change. We'll be seeing that very shortly. POA or POR is a purchase order acknowledgement or response. We have this one here, EDIFACT. So it technically stands for EDI for administration, commerce, and transport, but that's what determines the formats for that data interchange between partners and middleware. ASN is an advanced ship notice. That's what we send to our customers to let them know what they can expect to receive. An SSCC, which is related to an ASN, is a serial shipping container code. So this is a container or a package or whatever that might be that's going to be holding items that are included in that advanced ship notice. Then we have a VAN, value added network. This is the middleman that often sits between those high volume retailers and wholesalers to be able to translate the data between different systems that might be managing that. And then finally, although it's not an acronym, we have GS1. And GS1 manage the global barcode standards. So they're the ones who who approve and design those things and make sure that we are adhering to those standards for product codes, for barcodes, etc. We'll speak about that very briefly towards the end of our session here. So, an example EDI process. So in the examples that I'm taking you through today, we're going to be looking at a wholesale to retail example. However, that's not the only way, as I've mentioned, that EDI will operate. We could go wholesale to retail. We could go the other way around. So even though I'm talking about dealing with an EDI customer, this could be we could also use this to work with an EDI vendor, or it could be any other different types of relationships between organizations that need that high frequency connection. So we've got an EDI customer, they're sending us a purchase order, and that's via the EDI framework. That comes into Business Central, and then we go and process that accordingly. From here, we then send that PO confirmation or PO acceptance straight back to the customer to let them know that everything's good. The prices, the inventory, etc. have been checked, and we're able to fulfill that in the exact way that the customer has requested it. So we send that confirmation. Then in Business Central, we go through our process through the warehousing and scanning, etc. functionality to pick and label the items. We then go and process a shipment inside Business Central. Once that's done, we send that ASN or advanced shipping notice to the customer to let them know what they can receive. And then either immediately or at some stage after that, depending on business processes, we then process the sales invoice, and that invoice goes electronically via EDI back to our customer. So there's no interchange, as you can see here, of paper documents. Everything is digital and everything is hands-off. Another example here is if it's not exactly slam dunk, we receive the purchase order, maybe we haven't got the right inventory in stock, maybe the prices are not correct, potentially we don't have items that fit within the requirements for our customer for things like expiry dates or lot numbers, etc. So we're sending a purchase order change. So here we're saying we can ship some of this, or maybe it's a little bit different to what you've requested, here we go. And if they're happy with that, they'll send back that confirmation. And then from there, we go through that exact same process again. So you'll see it's a two-way communication until we get to that final point where we know that we can either process it or not move forward from there. So speaking of which, got another scenario here where we've sent that change to our EDI customer. They don't like that, so that's going to be rejected. And that's the end of the process. We're not going to go any further down the path from there. Lastly, once again, we've received the purchase order from the customer. We know that we can't fulfill that. So we send rejection back to let them know that that's not going to happen. So these are my examples, or our examples of sort of a real world, very simple end-to-end process of the EDI using our SupplyPoint functionality. So what is SupplyPoint? SupplyPoint is FUJIFILM microchannels warehouse solution that sits inside Business Central. It has three different parts to it. The first one, as you can see here, is the integration framework. We built this to support complex integrations with all kinds of systems. It's also the framework we use to support our customers' EDI requirements. It supports any different type of interchange of data. So even though we're talking about EDI at the moment, it also supports things like FTP, SFTP, Azure Files, Azure Blobs, web services, etc. The second part of SupplyPoint is the scanning. And as you can see here, I've got a picture of that sitting on a scan bed that we can use in the warehouse. SupplyPoint scanning is a full paperless warehouse solution that's built inside Business Central and supported by a mobile application that can be accessed by barcode scanning devices like you see on the screen here. We're only covering a small part of the scanning application today, so if you do want to see more, please get in touch with your account manager so we can organise a more comprehensive demonstration of that solution. The final building block of SupplyPoint is the agent. And the agent facilitates a higher level of integration between Business Central, your warehouse scanner, and your local printers. You can use it to print any kind of GS1 compliant barcode or your own custom barcodes created from data inside Business Central. And you can print it to either an assigned printer or choose which one you're going to be using for your session. So for example, if you have belt barcode printers, a warehouse operator could clip that onto their belt when they're starting their operations, and then select that printer so that whenever they need to print barcodes or labels, they'll do that from their belt. Excuse me, they'll do that from their belt as they go throughout their warehouse operations. However, it can also work for people in finance or other parts of Business Central that could assign a desktop printer that's with them or any other printers so that it prints automatically through there without having to handle the PDF export or print, etc., going from there. So without further ado, we've looked at the structure of the EDI interchange. We've had a look at the SupplyPoint functionality. So now I'd like to introduce my colleague Shane, who's going to take us through a demonstration of the solution directly inside Business Central. So handing over to you, Shane.
Thanks, Nick. Today I'd like to demonstrate two basic orders that come into the system. One will be what we call a perfect order, where it comes through with no problems. The second one will be something that has an inventory and pricing problem, so we can see how you address that in a retail EDI scenario. When we pick and pack these orders, I'm going to do it in two different ways. The first one, I will automatically have Business Central pack for me, so we don't have to think too much about it. The second one, we're going to pack manually. When I do this, I have deliberately stopped all the background queues. I'm going to process this stuff manually. So when you do this in a production environment, you don't have to do a lot of these steps. I'm just trying to show you how it all works from the basics without seeing things happen magically. So what I'll do first is I'll go ahead and bring in a perfect order. So as I said, I'm just going to drop this in. Normally this would arrive from your van without any effort on your part. So we'll go ahead and drop that in. Now this is doing a few things in the background while it's happening. It's processing a whole bunch of workflow, and eventually we're going to end up with a released sales order. So let's have a look at what that actually did behind the scenes. So if we drill into the inbound message, I can see there's 4 steps in the workflow. So the first thing it did was process the inbound retail order. It did this by assessing who it came from, what they're ordering, make sure the items are valid, and pushes it into our GS1 retail area of the product. The second thing it does is validates it. Now, because it's validated price and inventory and everything meets, it's proceeded past that point. It then sends an order response out to say, hey, we've received your order. Yes, everything's good. We're going to send it. And finally, it releases the order. So let's go and have a look at the GS1 sales order. So this is a GS1 sales order inside SupplyPoint Business Central. It looks very similar to a normal BC order. There's a few extra things. We've got an electronic data interchange fast tab at the top here. We've got version number 1 of the document. It's an original document and it's approved. As you can see, everything is valid, which means everything is happy to go. So let's go and have a look at the sales order it created. Okay. This is a normal BC sales order. There's nothing special about this. All it's done is carried everything across onto the sales order from the retail order. So we'll go ahead and pick and pack this. So we go and create a warehouse shipment. And you'll notice on the warehouse shipment, there's this new fast tab called ASN packs, which at the moment has got nothing in it. We'll go ahead and create a pick. And let's have a look at that pick. Okay, so the pick as well has the ASN pack fast tab. Now in this particular order, triangle widgets come in cartons of 12 and I need 16. Square widgets come in cartons of 10, I need 13. So to satisfy this, I'm just going to have the system auto pack it for me. So I hit the auto pack and it's created 3 cartons. And if I look at the ASN overview of that, you can see what it's done. It's packed 1 full pack of 12 into a carton, 1 full carton of 10 into a carton, and the bits that are left over into a 3rd carton because that fits based on cubage capacity. If we go ahead and print the SSCCs for that, you'll be able to see what it's done. So what this has done is rendered ZPL so that I can have a look at it to a PDF. So these are the 3 carton labels that we would need to attach to the cartons when we pick and pack them. At this point, it's worth, I suppose, explain why ASNs and SSCCs are important. So when you trade with your vendors and your customers, you're going to send this ASN electronically ahead of the goods. So what that does for them is that when they receive the goods, they don't need to crack open every carton and figure out what's inside it. They scan the SSCC barcode on each carton and the system will tell them what's in that carton. So it means receiving large orders becomes timely because you don't need to break everything open, but it also relies on a trust factor, and that's what's important with retail EDI. So you build up trust with your customers that you will supply what you say you're supplying. So typically customers will randomly spot check cartons to make sure that what's in there is actually what's in there. If you start to pack in correctly, or you pack the wrong quantity or the wrong items, then that trust factor lowers, and that's not great for business. So it's really important once you go down the ASN process that you pack correctly. So now what I'll go ahead and do is we'll pick this on the scan device so we can see how that works. So this is the scan device that we've got here. I'm just going to go ahead and log in. Now, I'm selecting a printer here. I can adjust configuration. So when I pick, I need to print labels, maybe. If I need to print labels, I need to determine where those labels are going to get printed. So during configuration, we can do that a number of ways. One, we can send them all to a fixed printer. If it's a small operation, one printer somewhere is going to be fine. If it's a large operation that you don't want to invest in belt printers, you can have multiple printers spread throughout the warehouse, and you can scan the printer that you want them to go to as when you request the pick. Alternatively, the third option is when I log on, I select the barcode printer that's attached to my belt. They're just called belt printers. They're wireless, and all my labels will come out on my belt printer, so I don't have to go anywhere to get them. So in this case, I'm just going to print them to my belt printer. This is the main operation screen for the scanning system. There's a lot going on here. We're not going to get into it today. All I'll go ahead and do is start the pick. There's only one pick in the system. I've deliberately cleaned it out for us today. So I accept that pick. And the first thing that pops up is handling instructions. So these handling instructions are things that SupplyPoint adds into the product for usability. It allows sales operators, for instance, to communicate instructions directly to warehouse operators without having to pick up a phone or send an email because they're unreliable. Every time they start a pick, they will get a list of summary instructions if they choose to show them. You can also add specific instructions to the document, to a specific line. If there's a particular item that really needs to be handled with care, you can add specific instructions. So when they start to pick that item, it'll pop up a message that says handle with care or packing polystyrene foam, etc., etc. So that's just another benefit we get with the scan device. So we acknowledge those. Now what you'll see here is my SSCC number is up the top here. So it knows how I'm going to pack this. So this particular packing process would be, I've already printed the labels when I auto packed it, and I am slapping a label on a carton. And I am going to walk to the bin, scan the bin. I'm going to scan the item. Typically, I'd scan a normal barcode here, not enter the item code, but I don't want to enter long numbers. And then I would scan the SSCC label that's on the outside of the box I just labeled. That's to confirm that the item is going into the correct box. I then repeat the process. I'm picking the same item, but I'm picking it into a different carton because remember, 4 of them didn't fit. So now I've got a different SSCC number. Oh. Sorry, I'm out of sequence. It wants a quantity first. So that's an example of what happens when you don't give it what it wants. You'll get a prompt and the operator will have to repeat the process. I jumped a step. I need to supply the quantity I've actually picked. Now I need to enter the SSCC number. Then we repeat the process. Now we're on to the second item. Scan the bin, scan the item. And because it's a whole carton, I don't need to enter a quantity. There's 10 in a carton. I've scanned a carton barcode. It assumes I picked up 1 because I scanned the barcode. And then this is the last piece. These are the last 3 that are going into the second box. Enter the quantity this time. And finally, the same box code that the other 4 widgets went into. This is the last step of the pick. This gives you the ability to determine where I want to place it. It'll suggest a bin shipment bin for you. But if you're running multiple lanes for dispatch, you can choose where you want to put it so you don't lose track of it. I want to print transport labels because I need to transport these through a carrier. It's going to go ahead and do that. And then we're back to the pick list. So if I refresh this screen, you'll notice the pick is now gone. That's because it's been registered. If I go back to the shipment, everything's ready to go. I can look at those transport labels that I just printed from the device. This is these here. So if I show the document, these are just generic transport labels that I've printed to go on the side of the box. Doesn't really matter. These are all configurable. While we're on there, let's have a quick look at what you can do with the labels. We provide out of the box a bunch of labels that are certified for a whole lot of people. So for instance, we've got down the bottom here, Officeworks, Coles, Woolworths, ALM, Crown, David Jones, Australia Post labels, Team Global Express. These are all ready to go and formatted as you need them when you ship and deal with these customers. But I digress. Back to the shipment. So we've picked and packed it. The last thing we need to do is send that ASN electronically and then send the invoice electronically. So to do that, there's nothing special. Just post a shipment like you normally would, ship an invoice. So what this is going to do is generate the ASN. We've already packed it inside Business Central. It's going to generate an electronic version of that, and it's going to queue it for delivery, and it's also going to do the same with the invoice. Now, how do we see all that? We can see it back here at the roll center. The first one is the order response that we sent back when we first received the order. I've got a dispatch advice here and an invoice here. If you want to have a quick look at what they look like, the data set looks something similar to this. They're all XML that we transmit. Anybody familiar with GS1 would understand that this is pretty standard stuff. It's just it's an XML conversion of an EDIFACT message. What do they look like for real? If we go and have a look at the GS1 ASN shipments, that's the ASN electronic version of the ASN we created. As you can see, it looks a little bit different. If I close that down, you'll notice it's got simple cartons. And down the bottom here, I can see there's 12 triangle widgets. If I select this one, I can see what's packed in it. It's just a different representation of the same thing you saw previously. And the invoice looks exactly like this one. Very similar to an all BC invoice with a lot less information. It's a very basic document, but all the bits you need for an invoice. So that's the perfect path. What happens when something goes wrong? So let's simulate that. This time I'm going to bring in an order that has a pricing problem and an inventory problem. So let's go ahead and do that. The same thing's going to happen. It's going to do its workflow, but this time it's going to come up with an error. Now, because I did this interactively, I get to see that there was an error. Normally, you wouldn't know that because everything's done behind the scenes. This is where the role center is pivotal because it shows me that I've got errors. So if I click on that error, and it will tell me that this order came in error, and the first error it encountered was the unit price is different to the calculated price. So we can go and have a look at the real GS1 record. And as you can see now, my validation is not happy. I've got issues here, I've got issues here, and I've got 2 lines that are not happy. If I click on the third line, it'll tell me the quantity is not available. First line, the unit price is wrong. If I click on the top level, I get a complete summary of everything. So we can't proceed at this point. How do we fix it? What we need to do is create a new version. So we change this and the version becomes number 2. We keep a complete version history of everything that happens in and out of every order. I'm going to cheat, and I'm not going to do it the hard way. I'm just going to say correct the price and discount and correct the inventory. So what that's done is it's now happy and it's valid. Under the hood, it has changed the original quantity, 10, 11, and 20, to what we can provide, which is 10, 11, and 12. And it has changed the pricing. They wanted $17.50. The real price is $18.18. The other 2 prices were okay. Now all we need to do is send it. So when we send it, this sends back a purchase order response to the customer that says, hey, we got your order, but there's some things that we don't like about it. We need you to review it. So what happens now is that'll go back to them, and as Nick highlighted at the start of the slides, they'll either accept it or reject it. In this case, they're going to accept it as we sent it. So I'm going to bring in the order change for you. And this time it'll be just like the first order went through fine. It's processed and everybody's happy. And at this point, it's just a normal GS1 sales order like everything else. So let's go ahead and pick and pack that one. Okay, so we'll create the warehouse shipment. And we'll create the pick. Let's have a look at that pick. Just like the first time through, we've got no ASN packs. This time around, I am going to pack it out on the device rather than pre-packing it. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I refresh my pick list, I'll pick up the pick we just created. Same as the handling instructions, just like last time. Now it's asking me for an SSCC number because we haven't pre-packed it, so I need to generate an SSCC. So I'm going to go ahead and generate an SSCC label. And if I refresh my pick screen, you can see it's now added an SSCC with nothing in it to my pick. So I'm going to copy that. Actually, we'll just type it in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now that I've entered the SSCC number, it's happy and it's just like the normal pick. So now we go to the bin, enter the bin, confirm the item. Now I'm not picking a whole carton here, I'm only picking 10 pieces, so I have to provide a quantity. And we're on to the next item. Now in this example, I'm going to pack the first 2 widgets, the square and the triangle, into the same box. It's for something different. So we scan the next bin, scan the item, quantity. They won't physically fit in the box anymore. I need another label. So I use the same action, generate SSCC, refresh my pick. Normally these would be printing out on my belt printer, so I could just slap the label on the box as they go. In this case, I enter the label number it just generated for me. Scan the bin, the item, and the quantity. Now this one is deliberately a lot tracked item to show you how that works. So I've only got 8 of lot 1 and 4 of lot 2 left in my inventory. So I have to confirm I've picked 8, and it's going to say, well, what lot number? Lot number 1. Then I have to reconfirm again the item because I'm picking again. This time I've got 4 and I've got lot 2. That's the end of the pick. Confirm the shipment. I don't want to bother printing the transport labels this time. And that will complete the pick over there on that side. So now, if I come back to here, the pick's gone because it's been registered, and we can look at our shipment, refresh our shipment. And if we look at the ASN overview to see what it's actually done, you can see it's updated the system. It's now packed 10 of the triangle widget, 11 of the square widget, and 8 and 4 of the lot. But ASN's track lot numbers. So it understands that we've got 8 of lot 1 and 4 of lot 2. I don't need to do anything special here. Just like last time, post a shipment, ship an invoice, and it will go ahead, generate the electronic ASN, generate the electronic invoice, and queue those for delivery as well. And that pretty much ends my demonstration. So I'll hand you back to Nick. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Shane. So as I mentioned earlier, the SupplyPoint integration framework supports EDI with customers, with suppliers, etc., and also especially via VANs or value-added networks, as Shane mentioned. But it also can support integrations to lots of different applications. So on the screen here, we've got some examples of where we can integrate that. So in terms of 3PL and transport, you'll see there's some examples that Shane mentioned: Team Global Express, Ozpost, for example, Savvy and Tomax for transport management systems. On the EDI side, also, as Shane mentioned, we've got our EDI retailers. These aren't a limit to what we can do. These are just the ones we've been required to do and work on with our customers. Then, in terms of EDI vans, we've got Message Exchange, SPS Commerce as the 2 most common ones that are used, but then a couple of other EDI vans that we're working through there. We've integrated with warehouse management systems like Manhattan and also other solutions like planning procurement solutions, AP automation, and other ERP systems for those types of integrations. So even though they're not necessarily EDI, we can also support that with this, especially if you're using this for EDI, then it means we can also quite simply connect it to other solutions for those integration purposes. We haven't found something we can't connect to yet. So what are the key benefits? So the first one is to maintain and attract major retailers. Lots of major retailers have EDI demands, and so we can meet those. We can support you through that process. GS1 compliance for labels, for different types of documents that are interchanged. We'll support you with compliance checks for the retailer. So any of those certifications that you might need to go through with the supermarkets, with the retailers, then we can support that. And it's a fully automated process. As Shane mentioned, he took us through that process pretty much click by click, but it's usually automated except for that part where somebody needs to actually go and get the goods from the shelf in the warehouse. It's fully integrated. It's built inside Dynamics 365 Business Central. So it's right inside there with the inventory management, with the warehouse management parts of Dynamics 365 Business Central. It's also fully integrated with our warehouse scanning app, as you saw with Shane's demonstration, and also the SupplyPoint agent and printing so that we can print those barcodes and labels, etc., as we need to. And then finally, and I guess that's really the theme of this webinar, is this helps to remove manual entry and handling errors. You're not going to need to double enter information between systems anymore. You don't need to go and enter it into a customer or vendor's portal, and you don't need to worry about processing that. So that error that could possibly happen between the keyboard and the screen, that no longer exists there. It will save you in reverse logistics for returns and processing those returns and credits, etc., which might also include stock write-offs if that's not economical to actually process those reverse logistics. And of course, resource cost reduction. Doesn't mean you've got to get rid of everybody, but it does mean that they'll have more time to do more effective work that isn't being consumed by the processes that you might have currently in place. If you're interested in learning more about SupplyPoint, the EDI, but also the warehouse scanning and agent that we talked about inside Business Central, or if there's something else that you might like to speak about, we mentioned Peppol at the start, maybe that's something that's more relevant to you. Please connect with your account manager. They're listed on the screen here. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you very much. Thank you to Shane, and thank you all for attending.